So obviously, as an individual, you have a lot of self-reflection on what's going on.
Yeah.
So do you think within the American Muslim community, at the community level, is there similar self-reflection going on to find out why young men in our community are so susceptible to this kind of propaganda on the internet?
Sure. Basically. I mean, I think one thing it comes down to is the fact that we've always been a community that said, oh, well, it could never happen to us. And that's what was reflected for America as a whole on 9/11. Mm-hmm. Oh, it could never happen to us, and then it did. And then the Muslim community did the exact same thing for 8 years because everyone who was committing these actions was not from us. They might have been from Western countries, but they weren't from America, and that's what mattered. And then we found out, oh, wait, now we need to... It was a reality check for us, just like 9/11 was a reality check for us as a country. And so I think there's a lot of reflection in the community, and it's warranted, and it needs to happen. And so, I mean, if anything good can happen out of these situations, it's the fact that we can make our community better, stronger. This might be the impetus we need toward understanding and educating ourselves properly. Not only, we have a very well-educated community, but often we lack education in substantively Islam. And so, for people to go back to the source, to go back to the text, to understand things, to understand them well, I think that's really important. And then beyond that, for the community to create a better sense of community where people who are struggling can come and talk to their religious leaders, where they can talk to other members of the community without fear, and they can struggle with these issues together. Because, we're all growing up. We understand that there are challenges. It can be as little as I got a B on this paper that I worked really hard on to, something as big as what these guys seem to be struggling with. Either way, we need an outlet in communities to be able to discuss those things and identify and address problems before they become bigger problems. And so I think the community as a whole is starting to see that, and hopefully will start to reflect that in how they operate, because that's really critical to ensuring that this doesn't happen again.
When you mentioned you put on your hijab when you were 15,
yeah.
So what made you to do that?
Sure. Well, I think this hijab is something that's so it's so personal, and it's such a very clear marker of being Muslim outside, and it's such a responsibility that it's something that really needs to be kind of thought about, and it requires a great deal of deliberation. And so I knew I was not ready before then. It was very clear I wasn't. But I think when I was about to start high school, I started to understand the weight of myself as an individual and the contributions I could make to society. And I wanted to ensure that with every decision I made, with every step I took, with every contribution I was making, that there was a very real sense for me of God consciousness in that. And so I think for me, hijab is really a reminder of God. And it manifests itself in different ways, in the sense that, for one thing, people can very identifiably regard me as Muslim, but on a personal level, it really forces me to question, oh, is this okay? Is this not okay for me? Because it reminds me of God's presence in my life. And I think I was ready to have that in as a part of my identity, and I was ready to kind of internalize what it meant for me, that I was ready to make that decision and to wear hijab.
So it's almost like a rite of passage. You are coming of age to have confidence on your faith and confidence
Sure.
to be able to conduct your life in its teaching.
Well, to some extent, yes. To some extent, no. In the sense that I don't think it's definitive of being faithful, or definitive of being, of caring about your faith. It's a difficult thing to put on. There are social factors. There are other things that go into understanding whether people do or do not wear hijab. Same thing. There are familial issues whether people do or do not. When it comes down to it, not a single person should be forced to wear hijab, ever. I really think it depends on the individual and whether they're ready. I mean, my mom didn't start wearing it until she was a few years before me, maybe like 5 or 6 years before me at most. I mean, and so it just depends on each person's individual development, spiritually, personally, and what role they think not only their faith but the very physical, tangible hijab would play in their lives.